find that quiet time, maybe go on quiet walk, and gives me time to reflect on what is it that I want. And then you kind of combine that perspective that others are giving you with what your intuition and gut is telling you is the right thing to do.
Listening to your gut and taking accountability, because I realized the moment I took accountability for yes, I choose to do this path. I chose to do both. I chose to maybe run the risk of taking away from my classmates' experiences, maybe run the risk of burnout and cynicism and all that. I stopped feeling guilty.
You're listening to Fearless Career Moves. I'm your host, Richa Bansal, founder of Pinkcareers, award-winning executive career coach, and former Amazon leader, here to help ambitious women ditch imposter syndrome, lead boldly, make more money, and build careers they love on their own terms. Women can have it all, and I'm here to show you how. Let's get into it. Amazing. Welcome to another episode of the Fearless Career Moves podcast. I am so excited to be speaking today with Rachel Wu. She and I connected a few weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. And I was just so amazed to hear her story and all of the amazing work that she's doing at Google and all of her journey leading up to that work at Google. So I'm really excited to bring this story with Rachel Wu, all about choosing your domain, choosing your career intentionally, working through and navigating through the different choices that we make that enable our career in life, navigating through burnout. We have so many different things to talk about to you today. So welcome, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Richa. I'm so happy to be here. So happy we are able to do this. And yes, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 months ago when we first connected, but yeah, it was an amazing conversation. I'm just so happy to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell everybody a little bit about kind of what you do at Google and what has that journey been for you leading up to your current role in AI infrastructure at Google?
Sure. So right now I work in cloud strategy in strategic programs people. And what we are focusing on this year has been very much heavy on reliability for all of our customers and also internally in Google as well. There's a big shift within Google from just machine learning AI to agents, and agents are going pretty wild when it comes to things like coding and software development and all of that. So there's a big risk to reliability. And so when we think about agentic reliability, what does that really mean? There's a lot of moving pieces around this, but my team is really focusing on trying to just accelerate this transition to agentic reliability while also not blowing up everything. So that's what I can say about the role. Previously, before this, I was in the global business organization at Google, where I was working in our scaled enterprise customer support types of products. And that was where I got my hands really dirty with just AI in implementation, practical AI uses, chatbots, automated triage, translations, all of that fun stuff. But this is very much an internal strategy focusing role. So it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely a learning curve. And before Google, I was working in some hedge funds, some startups, and I can get into the details about that. But yeah, it's been 7 years at Google.
Amazing. I can agree with you. I mean, I am not super hands-on when it comes to agentic AI or whatnot. I've been dabbing my hands into it a little bit, but not so much. I have a team that helps me out. But I day in, day out work with some amazing women who are just like you, doing some really interesting work, especially with agentic AI. And it's really like all the way AI is improving products, bringing efficiencies in different tools, different organizational systems, and things like that. And one of the questions that I routinely get with my clients is really about, should I keep going deeper into technical spaces and where the world is moving, or should I kind of continue to move towards leadership roles? Because eventually a lot of women that I work with, they want to move up into leadership roles. So I'm kind of curious to hear from you, when you moved in from the business process organization into the work that you're doing right now, was that move intentional? Was that move suggested to you? How did you even decide that instead of going very leadership, more leadership and away from technical, I want to actually go deeper into a technical role?
Yeah. Wow. I'm so happy you asked this because it's helped me reflect on, I think, a really pivotal conversation I had with a mentor at Google. So he had been part of creating the technical program management ladder at Google. He had been there for so long. He was a fantastic leader. And I got to know him just talking to some managers, looking around. I was looking for mentorship. And he tells me one day, hey, we have a team who needs someone who thinks very, very big picture and really thinks about, okay, what does this mean for the people, processes, the whole business? And you, Rachel, have the in-depth technical expertise on, at the time, it was early stage AI and large language models because I was reading all the papers. I was just obsessed with it. And he goes, your background could make you a good fit for the role, even though you're not on that ladder. And previously I was in the product management group. And so I did a conversion interview. I asked him to help coach me. He was amazing. And I think having the technical domain passion really helped open the door for this role, which turns out to be much more technical than the old one. And so now it's like, I hear all this jargon every day. I hear new technical topics, and it's fascinating and it's fun, but it really kind of built upon the previous layer, the first role I had, and even before that, getting a degree in computer science. That I never knew it was going to lead to this. But it really has been a foundation in some ways of just having the technical domain and being able to not just go deeper, but build on top of it has been pretty fulfilling. Yeah.
So Rachel, you come from a software background. You said you have a degree in computer science, and you had this layer of technical expertise to begin with. And a mentor was able to help you recognize that you can build deeper onto that and really move into a space where a lot of cutting edge work is happening. I'm kind of curious to hear from you. What would be your advice? And maybe, you have a team, and I'm sure you mentor other women and other professionals around you as well, who may not come from this deep technical background, who may not have a degree in computer science. And if they have a desire to move towards more technical roles or more AI focused, agentic AI focused, LLM roles, what would be your advice on how can they do that? Where can they start? How can they do that?
Yeah, this is such a fascinating question, because for several women, I've mentored 2 women who have had technical backgrounds, and their main concern is, how do I communicate better? And I've mentored 3 actually classmates from business school who don't come with the technical backgrounds, and their main question to me is, how do I sound more technical?
So whatever you have, you want to go the other side.
Yes, and that's always the story. It's if you're technical, and like me, I had this insecurity too. It was like, I don't know how to speak. When I was doing the business school interviews, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, I am too nerdy. I can't do this. I can't speak about myself. There's no way I can pass the interview. And then for business people, it's always, I got to go to the AI events. I got to go to the technical things. I need to talk to technical people so I can just absorb through osmosis and repeat the words that they use. And it does kind of work. But yeah, being naturally aware of your strengths and your areas for improvement is really important. And I will say, being in a team that has actually quite a few folks with PhDs in kind of the learning science and pedagogy realm, there's always this risk of overestimating your abilities when you're just beginning to learn something. And that's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where I've been susceptible to this, where I go, oh, yeah, I know how to negotiate. And I don't do a good job because I know the principle, but I haven't practiced it. And I think for non-technical folks, it's easy to think exposure is the same thing as knowledge or skill. If you hear about it all the time, or if you're reading all the news and yes, I see LLMs every day, and to equate that with, about it and you're familiar with it and you can work in it, that's a really human but dangerous gap to fall into. So continuing to build the competence and technical expertise, and going one step further of, reading and maybe trying to get your hands on with something to be able to say, yeah, I learned about, AI and I tried to build something. Even if it doesn't work out, that already puts you so much further than a lot of people who are kind of stopping at that, okay, I read about it, I subscribe to newsletters, and still fall susceptible to that overestimation of ability. So I think getting your hands on with technical pieces is always a way to go.
That's a fascinating point. I actually never thought about it this way, but you're right. Exposure is just a starting point. Exposure doesn't equate competence necessarily, but it's a starting point to build that competence. And so what can somebody do who's maybe just at that stage of exposure, right? Like they're exposing themselves to the newsletters and the various, like, they're kind of like going through the courses and they're passively almost going through but that's a great starting point, right? And so what would you say to them on how can they start to like build that competence and build that competence fast, especially if they're in roles where they may not be very hands-on with AI and agentic AI in their day-to-day work? Because that's something that I'm finding a lot with our clients and some of the ladies that I speak with. Many of them are still in roles where the AI is the aspiration, right, for their organizations. And so then day to day, they are still not doing anything beyond generative AI work, right? And then and many of the opportunities that are out there or that they want to pursue in the long run as they see their career growth are about really more like deeply involved with AI. So how can these ladies make that shift?
Wow, this brings to mind, okay, two things. The first one is about a person I know who had a non-technical background and somehow managed to work at an AI research lab. So I'll tell you about him in a second. And the other piece is it's related to the nonprofit I was a participant in high school. So recently reconnected with her. I think there's a fascinating challenge there because it's the exact same problem you just described. How do you get non-technical people or people who are not doing this in the same time, working on AI or being more hands-on? They were dealing with the exact same thing and they had some interesting insights. So I'll share that in a second. The first guy, unfortunately, it's a guy, it's not a woman. So I wish I had a story about a woman because it would probably resonate a little more. But this guy, I reached out to him because he was an alum, and I was just trying to interview people at research labs. I was just trying to pick their brain and see, what's it like to work there. And he goes, "Oh, when I was at Stanford Business School, I was non-technical. I got so much FOMO about AI that I just realized I really need to go deep." And he said it was hard to stand out for my classmates because they also wanted to do AI stuff. What he ended up doing was creating a Substack. He would post about AI. He would go into the niche details about, okay, this is what this algorithm means. He was talking about gradient descent and why it is different. And I'm sure there's ways to do this now with AI helping explain or make great analogies. And he just kept pumping it out. In addition to that, he tried to build some experiments. So it wasn't like he was releasing apps and having millions of users. He was just, I'm just going to do this thing on my laptop and then share it. And I do feel like I fall into this trap too, that women don't often share. They kind of try and then they don't share, especially if it didn't work out. But they will share if something did work out, right? But he did not have that barrier. And I think most men also don't have that barrier. It's just like, you try something, it doesn't work out, you still talk about it because it was a valuable experience. And I think we're pretty hard on ourselves as women when we say, well, it didn't work out. Maybe that reflects poorly on my ability. Maybe this just means I'm not supposed to be in the field. I would not internalize any of that because the guys are not internalizing it. So I would not have us be at that disadvantage if I could pick. The second piece of this, second story, there was a fantastic nonprofit called Technovation. Back when I was in high school, they had this challenge of how do you get girls to even be interested or get more hands-on experience with, back then it wasn't AI, it was literally just computer science. But now, these days, they are working on how do you get girls to be prepared for AI and STEM fields, especially without any technical background. And I think in high school, very few people have any kind of coding or technical knowledge or experience. And so what they realized is if you ask a girl at that age to think about their community and to think about a problem that they want to go solve in their community, then finding some mentor, finding someone who can help you do that and kind of at least keep you accountable or go through the process with you, maybe finding other women who are also interested in this so you're not doing it by yourself, because most adults these days, when they're learning in an isolated way, they don't go further in the journey. And so that showed Technovation. Girls have so much creativity, so much innovation, and so much, I would say, agency when it comes to building and using STEM for good. that they decided to really lean hard into this. And I think they're pretty global now. I caught up with the founder recently, Tara, and she's fantastic. And they kind of cracked the code of like, this is how you get women or girls to really be able to get more hands-on. So if it's those mentorship, or find someone who can help you. And also don't do it alone. Maybe find some other woman who may be in the same journey or the same step or want to do the same thing. So I think those two can really help. And then also just if you are trying to solve a problem you're passionate about, that's going to keep you going. And you can kind of see the vision of what's the point of using AI, or what's the point of learning this? It's not just you get the career benefit. It's you can already make a meaningful difference in your community, even with just minimum or more basic AI skills.
I absolutely love what you said here. As kind of you were sharing about technovation, I was, and then also the previous thing about the previous story about this guy you knew who built this little tool and ran these experiments and shared what worked and what didn't work. Coincidentally, this morning I was listening to a podcast, which was not about AI, but it was about starting and running your business and whatnot. And the podcast, the host was talking about how often his female clients are often harder on themselves, and they want like all the I's dotted and the T's crossed before they would launch their product idea, before they would put something else out in the market and so on. And it's fascinating that there's just so much parallels between what this podcast host was talking about, and then what you just mentioned about women trying to be perfect and thinking that whatever they are doing, if these are smaller projects or smaller experiments, that they are trivial and not worth sharing with anybody, versus this gentleman that you talked about, he was just curious and he sort of started to get his hands dirty. And I think about my husband, right? My husband comes from a non-tech field. We were both mechanical engineers back in the day. We met in school. And just like me, he comes from a very like mechanical engineering operations background. And he self-taught himself to be a AI product manager, now like a director of product,
Wow.
all the way from like, teaching himself through these free coursework in the beginning. This was 5, 6 years ago, free and low cost coursework on Data Quest and Udemy. Like he would take courses after courses and build these little hands-on things. And that sort of graduated into doing these hands-on projects, then on Replit or whatnot. He has built our entire Pinkcareers system on which like the entire, like our company runs. He coded it himself. And then like he does these like, little experiments and shares and is proud of himself. Versus I think about a client that I was also talking about yesterday, and she doesn't have any hands-on work working in her current like in her past company that she could show, but she had created these small projects. She was talking about this project that she had created. You know how we go on Google Flights and we are trying to figure out what are the right flights for us, and Google only allows it a couple of parameters to be able to tweak, like plus minus 3 days and so on. And she was kind of talking about, well, as humans, as people, we have different things that we care about. That could be days flexibility. We may have less price sensitivity versus somebody else. There might be like other things that are important to us. So she created this whole tool for her and her friends to use, that will allow her and her friends to figure out very quickly what flights are available, and has more functionality than Google Flights. And she's not sharing that in a big way on her resume, or when I was kind of like working through that story with her, it almost came across as she was apologetic for that story, as opposed to like, I am so proud about sharing this story with you all, right? And so it's just like fascinating that you talk about with organizations like Technovation, the sooner we can sort of catch girls and young ladies, and in helping them understand that whatever you do, these little projects you do in service of whatever goals you have or the community has, if you share that, it will, and you celebrate that, you will feel more proud of yourself. You'll be more motivated to try more and more and build more and more things and bigger things. So,
Yes.
I love that you had this experience with Technovation, and this organization is doing this to really, and I think about my own boys as well. Like I have 2 boys, I don't have girls, but it's very similarly, I think that this could be beneficial, not just for girls, but also like little kids, to help them
building
start to
agency.
see, to help build agency in their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the stories you shared because I mean, your family, your friends, they are your community. And when you're solving for them, it's so motivating. So, yeah, I really love those stories you shared. I guess one tweak I could add on is being proud of showing your work is hard as a woman. I think one mental tweak I've learned from a really good friend, her name is Isha. She was one of my classmates. She she's a writer as well. And I get the sense sometimes she has a certain sense of pride, I wish I had, of being able to say, look at how undotted my I's are. Look at how uncrossed my T's are. And there you go. And so I found that so empowering as a woman. And so for me, when I find it hard to be proud or be able to share what I work on, sometimes there's a lot of pride of being able to share what totally didn't work for me. And that has helped with the mental barrier sometimes. But it's still a
Absolutely.
work in progress. Very much still a work in progress.
Absolutely. For me, like I tell myself sometimes that I am writing for myself 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
What I needed like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and it's and then one other thing that I love to tell myself, if and then my others as well, if they are hesitant to say something or share something, then I tell them that you are really smart, right? Like you are really intelligent, you're really smart. So if you have this question, like you're smart, right? Like you're not dumb. You're really, really smart. So if you have this question, guess how many others will have this question too? So you're doing them such a favor by asking it, because if you are smart and you can have this question, there are many others who are not as smart as you. They might have these questions too. So you're doing them a favor. So like better ask your question, better share what you have done.
Yes. And it helps, especially for people going down a technical journey. Very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
I'm curious to hear from you. Oftentimes, we all have this pressure on choosing one lane or the other, right? Sometimes we have this pressure from our family on choosing one lane or the other. I mean, I can absolutely vouch for coming from an Indian background that growing up there was pressure. Okay, you got to be a doctor, you got to be an engineer. It starts that early, right? For us, and later on, there's pressure said and unsaid about, oh, you should choose a certain field, or you should choose a certain role, or you should choose a certain company. And you may have that pressure set directly to you through your partner, through your friends, through your mentors or whatnot. And sometimes that direction that they are giving you may be different than what you want to take. And how do you sort of navigate that duality, or that come back to that sense of what is it that you want to do without the fear of missing out, or without the fear of judgment, or without the fear of being wrong?
Yeah, I think the fear of judgment never really goes away, to be honest, right? It's just accepting that you could be judged and it's not in your control and it's not going to really matter at the end of the day. I think the question you've asked about how do you manage kind of like expectations of going down one path versus really finding what you want yourself. I think there's two things. One, as a kid, we have no real like pressures. Like when you're a young kid, maybe before you even know what a doctor is. Like I remember wanting to be an actress in Hollywood. And I look back and I go, that's impractical. I don't want to be that now, but it is interesting when left totally alone to our own devices where your mind goes. And I think through mixing and meeting and even just traveling and finding people who have their own dreams, it helps you dream more too. So getting out there and getting yourself exposed to what other people want for themselves can help be a mirror, as long as you're not just like totally just latching on to what their dream is and saying, oh, other people want that, I want that too. Because I've definitely done that before. When I first joined Google, I had a very interesting teammate whose I think main goal at that time was to try to buy a house. And there's a lot of other coworkers I had at the same time talking about real estate and house and all this. And they were like 10, 15 years ahead of me. But I started to think, oh, I guess I should also aspire towards that too. I think that should be my new goal now that I've freshly graduated and I live my life like a checklist. So the next thing on the checklist was written in kind of for me by stealing other people's ideas, which is not a terrible way to go. If you thrive off of like a goal-oriented type of lifestyle, then that's great. But I do wonder, based on who I was exposing myself to, and if I had different coworkers, if I had a different environment, I would probably absorb a lot of the values from who I'm around. And so the control you do have may not necessarily be over what you want, but you do have control over where you put yourself, which will influence what you want. And that's a lot. That's kind of empowering in itself. Now, it's not like I have a time machine and I can go back and decide, okay, I want to put myself in this environment and I'm going to have this dream and all that. But it did definitely make me very conscious going forward now of who do I want to be around? What do I see myself for the next 5, 6 years, or even 10 years and 20 years down the road? And I think about I kind of imagine the inner child I have. And I try to ask her, okay, what do you actually want? Like, you see this person's dream. You kind of get the sense that you would probably be happy if you had that as well. But is that really what you want? And if it is, I once had this fantastic mentor who said, it still takes a lot of courage and bravery to go after something that is mainstream. And in this case, they were talking about tradition and ritual and honestly, like marriage. And so I was very much questioning, do I want traditional marriage? Do I want traditional kids? And yeah, in this modern day and age, it's kind of hard to be traditional and to want traditional things. But it takes a lot of courage to still go after it, knowing that it's a little old school, it's traditional, or, it's not the unconventional, Instagrammable life in a different country doing random stuff. And of course, I think being in big tech is somewhat mainstream for the Bay Area, and to still show up every day and do it and not go to some cool, hot startup, it does take some amount of, this is what I want, despite all the judgment and self-judgment too. So it's not an easy question to answer because, I think what we want changes. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too. Like, how do you think about it?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on this. I do think that, as you were saying, that we are influenced, and I have also been influenced a lot by the people you surround yourself with, the people you choose to surround yourself with. I mean, I kind of think about in the context of building my business over the last 6 years, as I built Pinkcareers. Every year, I have worked with a mentor or a coach, and in the beginning, I remember now that I am kind of more mature in my business and I have the wisdom to be able to reflect on it. I have realized that in the early years of building my business, when I had worked with a mentor, when I hired a coach, I was often kind of looking for their advice on what I should do with my business and the direction that I should take it and the products and whatnot that I should have. And I would always like in this fear because I was like such a baby in business, right? And so when things would be slow or things would be hard, I would get into this panic mode and was always looking for advice on what I should do. And later on, as I've matured in my business, I've come to realize that I have to think about any mentor that I work with or any person I'd ask for advice from with a grain of salt, because whatever advice they're giving is always, it carries, it comes from their experience, right? And so it is sometimes a projection of their own experiences and their own fears and their own sort of wins and all of that on you. So you have to always kind of take it with a little bit of a distance. You want to listen to everybody. And then you also want to be able to listen to your inner voice and your inner intuition, because we all have an intuition that solidifies over experience and time. And as you kind of give it more breath, right? Like you have to give your intuition more airtime as well. Right? So listen to everybody, because I do think, as you said, we need perspective. We cannot be just in our own sort of little swim lane. Especially if we want to grow bigger, we have to put ourselves in front of exposure of various kinds. For somebody, it looks like exposing yourself to a big company and a startup. And then maybe like one doesn't go well. And now you know like what you don't like. Right? So you have to kind of like expose yourself. Maybe you live in a certain city and then you live in a different type of city and like, okay, I actually do not like a very hustly bustly, very fast city. And I actually like this like smaller city vibe or whatnot, right? So you have to give yourself exposure. And then also you have to find that quiet time, maybe go on quiet walks or sit down with, like, I don't journal much, but I go on quiet walks sometime and gives me time to reflect on what is it that I want. And then you kind of combine that perspective that others are giving you with what your intuition and gut is telling you is the right thing to do. And the last bit I would say on this is that I really do believe in extreme accountability, right? I often do things that when things are hard for us and when we ask for advice, a lot of people ask for advice when things are hard, right? Or when things are like you have these two choices that are equally difficult or equally interesting and you ask for advice. And sometimes sometimes you could tend to choose the advice, tend to choose to follow the advice uh, in a way to like discount accountability, that at least like I didn't choose it and it happened, but I didn't choose it. So be very careful and cautious that you're not taking somebody's advice to discount accountability. Because at the end of the day, if I made a mistake, like it's on me, right? If I had a win, it's on me. So that's kind of how I like to think about gathering perspective and making decisions. And it's hard when you're young and you have less perspective, but as you mature over time and experience and age wisdom comes.
I'm so glad you mentioned two things, making decisions or really listening to your gut and also accountability, because those two, I don't know, when you said those two words, it resonated so hard because I've had moments in my life where I'm pretty sure I just made decisions with my gut. And not to go too much in the deep end, but I do believe life becomes a lot easier when you just try to optimize and really listen to your gut and make your gut happy. Because, we have 2 million bacteria living in our microbiomes and they want to be healthy. They want to be fed. They want to be safe. And so when we make decisions to protect that, it's not just, are you making you happy? It's what does your gut bacteria want? Right. And so I have found that to actually be like pretty freeing in terms of making good decisions and treating myself well. Anyways, the accountability piece, I totally agree. I remember feeling very guilty and almost ashamed at having chosen to continue working full-time at Google while trying to do the full-time MBA at Stanford, because no one else around me was doing that. And I even got advice from students and alums. And I was trying to keep it a secret at first because Stanford does not look kindly on people trying to do work in the first year. In fact, they have a rule explicitly on their website saying first years are not allowed to work. and so they went, first years are not allowed to work. Stanford MBA is an immersive experience, and you'd be taking away from the classroom if you are distracted or doing other things. I think they really just didn't want, people to go in and out or kind of check out or be on their laptops the whole time, which I understand. But I can get into this later, but due to things blowing up in my face in 2023, I ended up having to work. And it was a really hard decision because it was like, okay, I feel like I'm at an ultimatum. I either go pursue my dream, which I don't know if it's going to work out or not, taking a 2-year pay cut and kind of walking away from a job I already really liked, or I stay and kind of give up that opportunity, but I choose the stability and the financial security. And it was so strange having these two choices presented to me like an ultimatum and having people advise me, oh, you should choose this one. But then I was realizing it's a false choice. It's a false ultimatum. Why can't I do both? It was actually my mother who encouraged me to think about, well, what if you tried both? And when she first said this, I think I knew she was right because I originally felt angry. I was like, oh, how could she say that to me? Doesn't she care about me? Doesn't she care about my well-being? Doesn't she want me to not be burnt out? But looking back, I think I knew deep down maybe she had a point. She was, as she usually does, she can say something very directly and really get under my skin. And I kept thinking about it. And I was like, why would these people I respect a lot give me this advice that maybe I wanted to hear, or I was just looking for encouragement to go down this path. But I realized, to your point, exactly, it's sometimes people just project their own fears and insecurities onto you, and then they tell you to pick a choice that they would have chosen if they were in your shoes. So it's not necessarily taking into account you. It's really, I think this is the limit of human empathy. Them putting themselves in your shoes and saying, well, this is what I would do, so that's why you should do it too. I got very lucky because I had someone who did tell me something differently. I also got incredibly lucky because, and speaking of exposure, um, I had a I had a much older GSB alum share kind of in confidence with me that she secretly worked in office at, back then it was a big tech company, the first year during her MBA at Stanford. And she also was doing it for money. She said she didn't want to ask anybody for help. She was very independent. She was already working in tech. And she would go in on Wednesdays because that's the only day that we don't have classes at the MBA program. She would just try to like keep up the appearances. And finally, she said after 8 months, she finally got found out and got fired. But by that point, she was able to, I think, stave off like the rest of the second year. But I was like, if I hadn't heard her story, if that woman hadn't shared this challenge and like her path of being very brave with me, I don't think I would have had the courage to try it. And so I don't know, as women, I do think we should really be sharing more about ourselves and being more open about what's worked, what doesn't work, which is why things like Pinkcareers are so great. I have such a big fan. So, long story short, yes, like the listening to your gut and taking accountability, because I realized the moment I took accountability for like, yes, I choose to do this path. I chose to do both. I chose to maybe run the risk of taking away from my classmates' experiences, maybe run the risk of burnout and cynicism and all that. I stopped feeling guilty.
Yeah, I mean, you have to like have your back, right? I mean, I love how this album was able to share her story on I'm sure like she had thought about having her own back. Like if I get found out, she knew that she would be let go. And you gotta like know that you gotta be able to evaluate, okay, what's the pros and cons of taking that risk? And am I willing to take that risk? And am I okay with like kind of putting aside the stigma that will come from people telling me, oh my God, you lost your like 500K, 600K job over doing this or whatever the case may be. But I guess like you got to figure that out for yourself and trust that you will be able to have your back.
Yes. And if something
And then share that story of struggle, of that sort of mental duality and that challenge that you had to go through in making that decision with others. Because again, as I was saying, right, if you have that question, others will have it too. If you have that problem, others are likely going it through too. They're just like waiting for somebody to share their story so they can see an example of what's possible for her, it's possible for me too.
Yes. And I'd fully believe if more people shared this or by sharing this story, it's not like I want more people to do this, but I have a feeling if people are in the same situation or similar situation as I was the year going, oh my God, it was such a mess. I was dealing with layoff, I was dealing with a health crisis, eating disorder, toxic relationship, financial betrayal, all of that, like within 6 months leading.
Oh my God.
And I'm going, I don't know if I can go to school anymore. But if someone is going through something similar and kind of facing this kind of false dichotomy of you have to choose one or the other, like stability or pursuing your dream, I hope more people really question that fake ultimatum and find something that works for them. Whether it's working at the same time, I don't know. But yeah, I really do think should question the choices they're given a lot more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you also can choose your mentors. You know, one of the things that kind of come out of here is if people are giving you advice that is going against your gut, right? And you know that it is going against your gut and like you want to do something different because you think that is right, go find somebody else. You will always be able to find 99% of the time, you will be able to find somebody who will be able to like give you that little push. Sometimes you just need that little push to follow your gut.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So go find your people. Go find that.
Yes, go find your people. Yeah.
Go find your people. Like I think like your full story around making choices, making decisions, all the way from choosing to go to business school while you were working full time, like navigating your personal situation alongside, making choices to stay more technical and go more deeply into it, even though the pressure is to like climb up the leadership track and whatnot. And even though you are climbing up the leadership track, but you're also like listening to what you're really, really good at and pursuing that. And it's all like such a wonderful example of being fearless, which is what this whole which is what this whole episode is about, which is what this whole podcast is about. How do you make fearless career moves in your life? And I'm curious to hear maybe this one last thought from you on what is that one fearless move that you are the most grateful for in your career, and what is that one piece of advice? Maybe those two questions. It's not one, but two questions. What is that one most like fearless move that you have made in your career that you're most proud of? And then what is your advice to somebody who's just sitting on that ledge and that needs that little push to make that fearless move? What would you tell to her?
Okay. I love these questions. I'm going to go back to the early days of my career, like even before my career started. I was working for a couple startups. I was doing random contracting projects. I just wanted experience. I was getting paid nothing. And this was high school, college, whatever. I think the real fearless move I had was deciding to study abroad in Australia while I was in college for a boy.
The things we do.
Yes,
that turned out
things we
so
do.
different.
I was 19. I was so in love with this guy. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just thought it'd be a great idea to just put my life on hold and not recruit and not do anything everyone else was doing at college, and go live in Australia for 6 months. And I go there. And I didn't expect it to be a career move. I was not expecting it. I was not saying this is pre-planned. I'm gonna do all this stuff. I ended up hating it. I got there. I got sick. A month in, I was just coughing on the phone. I was like, I can't stand it here. But I have so much FOMO about what I'm missing out back home. And I realized, okay, I have a choice. I could call it right now. And the relationship didn't work out anyway, so that's just silly. I was sitting in my room. I was like, you know what? What could I do? I could call it, go back home with my tail between my legs, or maybe I could try to make the most out of this. I could try to make my surroundings better. I could try to use the opportunities I have here that I don't have back there. So what is that opportunity? What is different about this environment that I don't have over there? And what I realized is I have more time, because the difference in, Columbia CS is just like nonstop. Like you really don't have any free time. Australia colleges, they're still fantastic, but the style of teaching is not as, I would say, time intensive. And so I was able to use a lot of the free time to just explore a passion I had. And I was upset about a popular finance company using this third-party algorithm to do hiring interviews over video. And they said, oh, we scan candidates' faces and find the little micro-expressions, and we try to find candidates who have similar micro-expressions as our executives. And I look at the executives and I was like,
they're not like white.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It was one type of demographic, one specific age range. And I was alarmed. I was going, how is this possible? Like, don't people know that, at least with algorithms, it can be so biased and all this? And this is like before the whole trust and safety and AI stuff. So I used all my time to get really obsessive about this one company. And I went on a deep independent research project trying to figure out how their algorithm worked, how they trained their data, and all this. And I tried to run my own experiments, and I was just like a girl with a laptop. I didn't have any formal resources. And I entered a writing competition. I was like, this is going to be a great forcing function. I'm going to release my paper, and then, I'm going to get so much accolades. People are going to be so blown away. None of that happened. I submitted my 40-page paper, like independent research paper, to this writing contest, and it was crickets. And I was embarrassed. I was like, gosh, did I just spend the past 5 months of my life doing this in this random country? Did I throw my life away? I've missed out on all the recruiting cycles, all of that. I don't even know if my friends know me anymore. Anyways, I came back to the US in December. I had seen back in November, while I was remote in Australia, I kept crawling my emails and newsletters for opportunities because I had such bad FOMO. I was like, I just want to sign up for stuff. I was participating in like hackathons remotely. It was that bad. Um, and I had signed up to try to, I pitched a talk for this conference called the Google Developer Conference in Mountain View. And I said, I want this talk to be about algorithms and how easily they get biased. And I have some experiments I can show. So I had a slide deck. They just emailed me and said, hey, if you want to give a talk for like 30, 40 minutes, do it. And I go up to the stage. There's maybe 400 developers in the audience. And I showed my image of, I photoshopped the CEO of the finance company and I made his skin purple. And I said, okay, the purple version of this guy has an 11% chance lower of getting hired than the non-purple version. So I think people liked it. I had some fun. After that talk, right after, someone in the audience came up to me and said, hey, also, this is the important part because it's fearless career, then that's a theme. I put my resume as the last slide. I said, by the way, I'm a student. I am available. And so someone in the audience came up to me afterwards and said, hey, maybe you should consider applying for Google. That's where I work. And so I followed up. I got his business card. I said, I'm interested. He said, okay, here's the referral link. I applied through that link. And 6 months later, I was working in the Bay Area. And that's how I ended up at Google. So long story short, following your gut, make these dumb decisions. You just got to trust yourself and make the most out of the opportunities you have in front of you. So that helped me early career. I don't know if that is a good strategy for, continue onwards, but it was a very interesting twist of events. And so I think, to your second question of what kind of advice I would give, it's actually a piece of advice I have heard echoed in the ultra marathon world. The advice goes, don't let other people's experiences become your experiences. That has, I think, single-handedly been what helped keep me going and not act out of fear or run away from things. So the very first year of school, trying to balance both full-time work and both full-time school, I remember hearing people say, oh, the first year experience is so hard. You're not going to have any time for anything else. You're just not going to be able to do it. And I said, okay, that was their experience. People like to complain. People like to say, oh, it's so hard, right? So I was like, okay, there's a little bit of grain of salt there. People are lucky to be going to school, first of all, right? So it's kind of a first world problem. And so I remember waking up every day saying, okay, it currently sucks. It is terrible, but I'm not going to call it yet. I'm just going to see the full experience and just see how long it goes. And maybe that's not very healthy. It's kind of like frog in boiling water type of mentality. But I think not letting other people's experiences helps unleash you from doing your own, it helps unlock you to do your own thing and really find yourself. And I think it's so important for us not to take everyone else's words too much into account. And to really just go expose yourself to things, experience things, and draw your own conclusions. So be fearless.
Be fearless. Be fearless. Oh my God. I had such a good time talking to you, Rachel. Next time in San Francisco, we have to meet for coffee. We really do.
We do. It'll be another 4 hours.
We will possibly be there in November, and I'm going to hit you up before we
Please
come.
do.
So we have to catch coffee because I had such a good time talking to you. This was fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences, all of this great advice. And really, you got to listen to your gut. You got to be fearless in making those moves because what your gut is telling you, what is heart you're telling you is right. Do not let other people's experiences define your experiences, right? Listen to everybody. Do what you think is right. Do what you think is right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. Where can people connect with you? Where can people learn more about the work that you do? Where can they connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I have a Twitter. It's a little bit deactivated, but I'm getting back into it. I'm always happy to grab coffee, always happy to have a virtual chat. I love connecting with people. And I think if people want to reach out, I would welcome it. So thank you so much, Richa. It was so great to be here. And I hope we get that coffee in November. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. And we will share all of your social links in our podcast notes. And thank you so much for being on the show. That's it for today's episode of Fearless Career Moves. If this resonated with you, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss what's next, and share it with a woman who's ready to make her next fearless move. And if you are ready to take your career to the next level, make sure to check out The Fearless Hire, my signature career accelerator for ambitious women just like you. You can learn more at www.pinkcareers.com. Until next time, stay fearless.